afternoon, USA. God bless America. This is Mjw Bigfoot reporting live from Elkton, Virginia. Today is kind of a dreary, rainy day. The grass is growing good. My horse, old Trey, out here is rolling around in the hay, having a time of his life. Nice and cool, breezy a little bit. Probably about 60 degrees, maybe a little warmer. I really like this kind of weather in the spring. It's a good time to be in the woods hunting for a turkey, but I'm inside today watching Stripperco and a few other movies, getting my education and my Hollywood education. And I had a few things on my mind I'd like to talk about. This video might take 5 or 6 minutes. I've been talking to some people about God, and was really concerned about a lot of people because some of them believe in God, but they don't necessarily believe in Jesus. They consider Jesus a form of religion. I never did, and I don't think Jesus is religious. He was actually against, even though he was born into God chose him to be delivered into a Jewish family, he still had problems with the Jewish religion. He tried to correct some of the things that they did wrong, and he mostly got scoffed off, and eventually got hung for it. The people, mostly Jewish, hung him. They chose Barabbas to be freed instead. And then, of course, that includes the rest of the population, which would be you and me. We all hung Jesus. That's just man's nature. It happened then, and it'll happen again. On any planet that God built, you look at the way that things have gone along the way, the same as a man raises his own son. God created man. He told Adam rules and regulations. Adam disobeyed through Eve, regardless of how. He ate the fruit and was forever condemned to work the fields and work by the sweat of his brow for a profit and to survive. The woman has to bear the pain of childbirth, and their lives have changed forever. The Garden of Eden walls dropped. It was no longer the paradise it intended to be, but it became man's world, man and Satan. After a time, they had children, and Adam and Eve placed the rules and regulations on their children. One was a shepherd and one was a farmer. Well, one day, the farmer got mad at the shepherd, and he killed him. Now God, not having Jesus here on earth yet, cried out. He looked over the planet. He couldn't find Abel. Abel had already become part of the dirt. He was no longer in existence. Well, I thought God knew everything. Why would not God be able to find Abel? He surely wouldn't lie. The story says that God looked for Abel, couldn't find him. I'm sure he found him eventually, but when he asked Cain gave himself up. He more or less turned to a smart aleck towards God, and he said, "What am I, my brother's keeper? Have you made me my brother's keeper now?" He turned smart aleckly towards God. And God looked at him and said, "Whoa, Cain, hast thou no shame?" Cain looked up and said, "Okay, Lord, I did it. Does that mean I get his half? Do I get all of Adam's and Eve's property now?" And God looked at him and said, "No, Cain. From this day forth, I shall mark thee and cast thee out from Adam and Eve's world into the wilderness where the Hittites live. And there thou shalt live the rest of thy days, and all shall know what thou hast done by the mark on your forehead." And all of a sudden, a mark showed on his head. After that, everybody there, the land that he went to, knew that he killed his brother. They knew he was a murderer, but yet he became a leader and a famous man. His seed covered the earth. Meanwhile, Adam's and Eve's, and they had more children, and their seed covered the earth. As time went on, before Jesus, and as time before Jesus, God spoke to the people Now and then there was prophets, and he spoke to them, and there was angels. But it was really hard for the people to know God because there wasn't a daily relationship. They could pray to God, but without God's voice continually returning, they had no knowledge. They didn't know how to carry on. So one day, God decided to bear himself in the flesh so that we might have a new and better life and an eternal life, a life without death. The sting of death no longer exists. Jesus' yoke is light. You call on him anytime you're suffering, and your yoke is made light. Right now, I'm suffering big time. I got celery juice in my eyes, I think. I'm not crying because of the story. But anyway, people ask me all the time, oh, I doubt that. God does just fine without Jesus. We believe in God all the time, and we don't have to believe in no Jesus. There's one God, and everybody believes in one God. The Indians believed in one God. They didn't know nothing about God's Son. They did a really good job of believing in God because they were more religious than what we were. They had religion in their food and their hunting and their worship and their singing and their dancing. They had it in their everyday life. They didn't have Sunday. They didn't have Monday through Friday. They had every day given to God and one God, and the Son and the Mother Earth was all together as a unit, a big circle of life for them. The circle is what they use. They use almost a cross-like shape, the north, the south, the west, and the east, and the underground world, and the above-ground world in the sky. That's all they knew, the Indians. Well, as time went on, they had a few prophets. They claimed there was one Indian that could make the Rocky Mountains rise. I believe it was Jesus. When Jesus came during that time, I believe he traveled the globe and exposed himself to all nations. It may not be recorded the same, but that's what I think. I say a man can't walk around the globe. If a man can walk around water, he can walk. Man can walk on water. He can go wherever he wants to. There's only so many days in a year, 65 days or whatever, and there's so many miles around the earth. That's all I have to say about, the fact that people say that Jesus didn't exist and that we could have been fine without him. I mean, even if he did or he didn't, we could have been fine without him. God chose for himself to be born, to give his Son's life for us so that we may not perish. We can't leave this world in mint condition, and God knows it. All that we offer is of a filthy rag. God had a plan for us at one time before Jesus to make sacrifice to him, to butcher the goats and the sheep. And then one day he decided that it wasn't good enough, and so he asked that Isaac be ritually sacrificed with a knife on the altar. And Jacob was going to do it. He was going to sacrifice Isaac, and the angel came and stopped him at the last minute. He knew he was going to do it, but he stopped him. So that just goes to show you, I mean, after Jesus came, the angels still come and go, but they're not quite as vivid and loud and obvious as what they used to be. They're more secretive, and you very rarely hear stories about it, and most of the time it's only one or two witnesses. Not enough witnesses to verify it, and that might have been truth in the past too. Even before Jesus, there wasn't that many witnesses. But we need to understand that if we do choose to believe in God, that we have to believe in Jesus. All his teaching, all his songs, all his recording words speaks of his Son, Jesus, that died for us. Without Jesus, there is no other way. You can read all the books you want to, and you can get inspiration from all the books you want to, but you cannot get a book that's any cleaner than the Old and New Testament, the Bible itself, in its original form, unrevised. You cannot get a book that's any cleaner. It will not distract you. People say it contradicts itself. I don't believe it does. I've never seen it. I've never been able to prove any contradictions in there. If you think there's a contradiction in there, you send it to me, and I'll talk to you. I'll talk to Jesus about it, and I'll send you an answer back. But the main thing is, if you do believe in Jesus, you need to understand about this born again thing. Jesus wasn't born again. He told one of his disciples in his system, in his governmental system, he had 12 disciples, and they had a mission, and they proved their mission, and now they're the foundation of the holy city. Their names go around the holy city. That's that holds the city up. It's the very foundation of God's city for us, the one that's coming for us again another day. 15,000 miles wide, 15,000 miles tall. Well, Jesus himself asked us, we asked him what we must do to enter heaven. We have to be born again. And there's one of the answers. What do you mean born again? How can you be born again? You're born of the flesh, and then you're born of the spirit. Someday when you realize that you have a spirit, and you can see your own spirit, you feel it, you know it in your heart, and you pray to God to help you with your spirit, and your spirit grows. You learn things, and your spirit grows, and you start to find out what kind of things are important to God, and you start doing those things, and you record those things, and God records them through your mind and your connection to Him. Your mind is like an infallible computer. It's all the memory of your whole life and others around you, all the wrongdoings, all the right doings. It's all going up into heaven. It's not going to be forgotten. Your life is not in vain. Even if you just dig sewage ditches your whole life, you may be able to do a job in heaven that you enjoy, that people don't know how to do because you're the only one that can do it. And that's going to be your eternal job. You're going to have a new body, a new name, and a new purpose. And you're going to live forever and ever until the end. Alpha and Omega is God. Is only the end is Alpha and Omega from the beginning until the end. It could be possible you may be chosen to live again and forget your earlier life, but that doesn't mean it is forgotten. It just means that you have forgotten it. So, there are stories of people claiming to come back, and I don't deny that. God's will is God's will. I cannot tell God or any spirits what to do. All I know is my goal is heaven. My prize is Jesus. And I thank Jesus for giving his life for me. Amen. God bless America and the USA, both of them.